Hello Finxters and welcome to a new Pandas tutorial. In this tutorial we will learn how to read and write the clipboard with Pandas. We will learn how to read copied tabular data from our clipboards using the read clipboard function and how to copy data frames to our clipboards to paste them somewhere by applying the toClipboard function. And first of all, we will clarify why this is useful. So when we come across an interesting data sets somewhere in the web, for example, that we would like to use for a data science project, and the way we can access it is by, for example, downloading it and then saving it to our computer. And this approach is sometimes a bit inconvenient, and the data sets demand disk space, and they are often not that big files, but if we do that very often, then our memory and disk space gets overflowed by various data sets. But luckily Pandas provides us with a read clipboard function. This way we can just mark a data set and copy it by doing Control or Command C or right-clicking and copying it. And we can then read it into Pandas. And this is very useful. And for that approach, we will have a look at a sample data set. This can be from anywhere, can be from the web, from a file or something. We will use this data set here, which is stored inside an Excel file, but we will not import that, import this file or anything like that. We would just mark it and copy it. Again, for example, with Control or Command C, or right-clicking and selecting copy. And after we've copied it, we go to our code editor, and then we first of all import Pandas. And then we just say pd.readClipboard, because it is right now copied to our clipboards. And if we choose the function pd.readClipboard and we execute that, as we can see, we've successfully copied that data set into Pandas using the clipboard. Now we could, for example, assign this to a variable to work with that. Since it's still copied to our clipboard, we can again apply this function. And if we assign it to a variable, we can then, as I said, work with it, and so on. The way the function works is it reads the data from the clipboard, and then it passes the data to the Pandas function read CSV. That means that we can use all the parameters that the read CSV function supplies us with. If you want to read more about the read CSV function, I recommend you read the documentation. But let's say we have another data set, like this one right here. It's essentially the same data, but we do not have the extra indexes here, and we do not have any headers. And if we mark that and copy that, as we did before, and we then go back to our code editor and we apply the read clipboard function again, then we can see that since we didn't have any headers, by default then the read clipboard function chooses the first row and sets it as the header. And so the data frame that we now have here doesn't really make sense, because the first row, which was Jane and the age, number of pets and children of her, are now the headers of the columns, and this is not really what we intended. But as I mentioned earlier, we can use the parameters from the read CSV function. For example, the names parameter, which I will show you now. Again, we say pd.readClipboard, And inside the parentheses, we apply the names parameter. And the names parameter expects a list of the column names. And we apply this list. We choose the same column names as we've had in the initial data frame, which was name, age, pets, and children. And if we do that, we can see that now we have set the column names successfully by applying the names parameter that the read CSV function provides us with. So this data frame now has reasonable headers. And now that we've seen how to read data from our clipboards and how to transform that into a data frame, we will now see the other way around, basically. So how to copy a data frame to the system clipboards using the toClipboard function. And we will use the data frame that we've created for this approach. And we just say df.toClipboard, just like that, very easy. And this, if we execute that, we do not produce any output, but now the data frame is copied to our clipboard, so we can paste it somewhere. For example, we could paste it into an Excel file, and this is what I will do now. We can paste it by right-clicking and selecting paste, or Control or Command V. And as we can see, we have the data frame that we copied to our clipboards now pasted into Excel successfully. We could also, for example, paste it into a text editor like this one. Again, it's the copy to our clipboard, so we can again choose Control or Command V, or right-clicking and selecting paste. And we can also paste it here or anywhere else, could be a Word document whatsoever. So when we have a look at the documentation of the toClipboard function, we see that there's an Excel parameter, and it is set to true by default. And this is where we produce a data frame in the CSV format. And that makes it very easy to paste it into Excel. And this is good for when we want to paste it into Excel. But we can also set this to false. Again, df.toClipboard. And we apply the Excel parameter and we set it to false. Again, we do not get any kind of outputs, but it is copied to our clipboard. And if we paste that into Excel, which I will do now, we can see that this is not really convenient here. It's not suited to be copied into Excel. There are other formats where it's suitable now, but not an Excel document. And also, if we paste that into a simple text editor, it is structured a little bit differently than the first one, where the Excel parameter was set to true by default. It's a little bit different structure. It doesn't really make a difference in the text editor, but for Excel it makes a huge difference. And we can also change the separator or sep parameter, which defines the separator, so how the values are separated from each other. And if we apply this parameter, we said we can now inside or as a string apply the separator that we want to have, for example, a comma. Again, executing that copies the data frame to our clipboard with the new separator. And if we paste it into Excel, I will do it over here, we see that now we have this comma separated values. and we sometimes find data in the structure, so it's nice to be able to choose a separator. Yeah, it depends a little bit on the use case. We could also, for example, apply the index parameter and set that to false, to not paste indexes or to not copy the data frame to the clipboard with indexes. So df dot to clipboard, and we set index to false. And if we paste that into Excel file, maybe somewhere here, we can see that we have the initial data frame with the Excel parameters set to true by default, so it's suitable for Excel again, but this time we do not have any index values. So as we can see, there are numerous ways to copy the data to the clipboard, and which way we choose depends a little bit on where we want to paste the data and how we want to continue to use the data. So all in all, we have seen how to use our clipboards for working with Pandas. We've seen how to read in data to our clipboards to make it available in Pandas, and how to copy Pandas data frames in various ways to our clipboards to be able to paste them somewhere. And these skills are very useful because it saves a lot of time, especially when we work with lots of different data sets. Yeah, that was the tutorial. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something, and I'm happy to see you in the next one.